motorcycle.
Friendship with Yamaha canceled. KTM new best friend. It's too tiny. Like, look at the bend in my legs, you know?
Yeah, no, that's totally wrong.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome to a very requested video that I've seen on the channel so far. Today we are going to be comparing and contrasting the 2019 KTM Duke 390 and a 2020 Yamaha MT03. Let's do it.
Let's do it.
So today we are comparing these two bikes because we have this bike in our garage as part of our giveaway series. The KTM Duke 390 is one of our giveaway motorcycles. Hit the link down below on yamanoob.co to find out how you can win this bike. Every dollar you spend gets you 10 entries to win, which is pretty sick. And then this bike over here is actually a press bike that Yamaha has doled out to me very unwisely for me to rip around and goon around on. It's a pretty fun little bike. It's actually new for the American market. The MT03 has finally come out here. A lot of riders have been clamoring about it. I think this video will come out after my initial impressions of this bike, so you guys know how I already kind of feel about it, but it's going to be great to compare against this bike. Spite, what are you most excited about this comparison?
Honestly, it's just nice to have another like mini naked.
Yeah.
The market's pretty starved, in my opinion. You know, you have the Duke, you have the Z400, and then nothing else until this got here.
Yeah.
And now you have another option, and you know, the more players in a marketplace, the better.
Definitely. It feels like the Duke has just been kind of cleaning up shop for the last couple of years because it was the only game in town for mini nakeds.
Yep.
And then much like in 2014, 2015, when all manufacturers were like, oh my God, everyone wants small displacement sport bikes. You know, 2018, 2019, Yamaha and Kawasaki were like, oh my God, everyone wants small displacement nakeds, you know? And so they started making them. So let's talk specs, because everyone loves specs. We are prepared today, professional with pieces of paper here with the specs, because everyone, they hate us when we get it wrong. You know, these guys don't know anything. They're out here making YouTube videos like a bunch of, we're not gonna use that word, bleep that out, Spite. All right, so let's start with price. What's that come in at?
The price on this guy is $45.99, so this is actually really affordable.
That's a super cheap bike. Brand new, $45.99 in 2020. That's a cheap bike, guys.
That is seriously awesome. I bought my Interceptor for another $3 grand. If I didn't trade in my 919, it would have been another $5 grand.
Yeah.
So just to give you an idea, this is cheaper than pretty much everything else on the lot.
Yeah.
Except for like dirt bikes.
Pretty much. And also, compared to the R3, it's like $700 cheaper than the MSRP for the R3, because that comes in at $52.99, so a seriously budget-friendly bike. Whereas the KTM 390 comes in at $5,499, so this is definitely a more premium beginner bike, but it competes right there with that Ninja 400 RC390 price point. It just happens to be naked. So if your budget is around $5,000, this one's definitely a little bit higher, that one's a little bit lower, so something to keep in mind. Engines, what do we got working over there?
So this is the same 321cc parallel twin as the R3. It's
exactly the same.
It's the mill that everybody knows.
Yeah.
It's that same reliable, little punchy parallel twin that really kind of won the day a couple of years ago, but we have a little bit of more competition now.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, because back when it came out, Ninja 300 was like, where did this guy come from? He's got 21 more cubes on me. And then this came out with 373, and then the 400 came out. And so now this almost looks like the smaller version of all the other bikes. But again, it's an engine everyone knows. It's literally the same as the R3. Gearing, shifter, heads, everything's exactly the same on this motor from the old R3. Still makes the same 41 horsepower. So, you know, little down on power over your Ninja 400s and stuff like that. But speaking on the KTM, this has a 373cc single, so it's a little bit more punchy, doesn't rev as high, makes 42 horsepower. And what's the torque on this bike? I can't remember.
The torque on the MT03 is 21 foot-pounds.
Yeah, and it develops at bit of a broader rev range, right?
Yeah, so again, because it's a parallel twin, it's going to give you a little bit more usable torque kind of all over, whereas this is really punchy right from go.
Yeah.
And then it just kind of falls off when you get to the top.
Yeah. Me, as someone who's used to more higher revving sport bikes, this bike and my track prepped RC390, I pretty regularly ping the limiter on them because I'm not ready for it to stop at like 10.5 or whatever it is that it redlines at. Or maybe it's even 10,000. It doesn't rev very high, so that's something to keep in mind with this bike. So seat height's also going to be a really important thing to talk about these two bikes. Spite, what does the seat height come in at the MT03?
So the seat height here is really awesome for a lot of people. It's actually only 30.7 inches.
That's really approachable.
It's really kind of shockingly short, even though sitting here next to this other bike, it might look very similar.
Yeah.
For somebody who is kind of afraid of taller bikes, or maybe just wants to be able to really surely flat foot a bike, this is probably one of the best out there. I think it's even probably shorter than the R3s.
Yeah, I think it might be shorter or just as short, but again, super approachable. You know, you will not have any problem putting both feet down in case of an emergency if you're learning how to ride. And then later in life, as you get more comfortable with just one foot down, it's really, really nice to just be able to plant that foot really quickly if you're learning how to ride. We were talking earlier off camera how this eventually I think is going to be like an MSF bike to practice on because it's just so approachable and low seat height.
Oh, totally, totally. Yeah. I mean, this is a bike that literally anybody could get on. Now, I need to throw in a little caveat there. I'm 6'3" and I don't really fit on this motorcycle.
Yeah.
As we'll see when we get out on the road, my knees start kind of sticking out from the side of the tank just because it's a little too low.
Mm-hmm.
So if you are somebody my size, 6 foot, I've got a 34-inch inseam. So if you're in that kind of world, unfortunately the MT03 is going to be a very cramped ride for you.
Yeah. So again, that goes back to what we always say about ergonomics, going to sit on a bike before you buy it. You know, you might really love the look of it, but if maybe you're Spite size, you get on it, you're like, man, I feel like, you know, a monkey in a football. So, you know, that's not going to be a good look. Obviously, you'll bleep that out. Yeah. So
off to a great start.
Yeah,
today.
We're doing great today. And then in comparison, the Duke 390 has a seat height of 32.7 inches. Now, some of you guys might not be riders, and you might be thinking, well, it's only 2 inches, what's the big deal? It actually makes a really big difference when you're talking about inseam and the reach down to the floor over here. So you might mount up on this thing, and those 2 inches, if your foot's going towards a pothole or if you're a bit unsteady, might be the difference between you tipping this bike over and not tipping that bike over when you're learning how to ride. So that's gonna be a big thing. Let's talk suspension on these motorcycles, because this one actually has an upside-down WP fork.
And this guy has the same KYB suspension from the R3, which at this point, compared to everything else in the field, is a little bit budget.
The front suspension on the Duke 390 is a bit stiffer than the MT03, but Yamaha did make some changes to the front suspension on the MT03 because of this new raised bar over here. They actually softened the front suspension, so if you ride the MT03 versus R3, you'll actually notice that it's a little bit softer at the front. So we'll definitely see that on our on-road tests. Braking. Spite, let's talk about the brakes on the MT03.
Well, so one of your major complaints about the R3 is that the brakes feel a little bit wooden, and this is...
Not a little bit, a lot of it.
Okay, I was trying to be a little bit softer with it, but anyway.
No, I'll tell them how I feel, yeah.
So the brakes are a bit of a black eye. It's the same budget 300mm rotor on the R3. It will stop the bike, but it is not going to do a big, quick, fast stop. So. And, you know, the rear brakes are rear brakes, so.
Yeah. And the point that I want to make about the brakes here is that, you know, totally adequate for beginner. They will stop the bike. I think when you give it to a more experienced rider, what happens is it doesn't give you feedback to what the front end is doing and how much brake pressure you're actually applying. And that's what we mean when we say wooden. I've gotten some comments where like, what do you mean when you say wooden brakes? It means that when you apply brake pressure, you don't get a progressive sense of what the brakes are actually doing in a more like limit kind of brake braking sense. So when you press the brakes on the MT03, they just don't tell you what's going on. Whereas on the Duke 390, you actually do get a 320mm bi-bree brake system. That's a subsidiary of Brembo that actually makes a pretty good system. It's not bad on this bike, but with a quick pad change and a fluid flush out, it actually will perform a little bit better. That's something I've done on my track prepped RC. So these work really great. Let's talk about features and some other premium options on these bikes.
Sure, and I think this is where the Duke may start to run away with it a little bit. So the main feature for this bike is an ABS system, and that is at this point in most circles an as standard option.
Yeah.
Beyond that, we're still looking at the same dash as the R3. We're still looking at you know, the same levels of adjustability. They're not there.
Yeah.
It's a simple machine, but on the other side of that coin, it means there's not a lot to go wrong with it. Mm-hmm. It's just going to work. You're going to turn it on, and everything's just going to be there. Mm-hmm. So there's not a lot to worry about with this motorcycle in the features department.
Yeah, the KTM actually comes with a TFT display. It comes with quick adjustable clutch and brake levers. It's got backlit controls. It's got a supermoto setting, which disengages the rear ABS, allows you to slide the bike around. So it's actually got quite a bit. And also the 2020 version of the Duke 390 actually comes with a quick shifter, traction control, which is crazy in that price point. Crazy.
Yeah, honestly, that's kind of mind-boggling that we're starting to see that kind of technology in this class.
And that is reflected in the price. You know, even though this bike has all the cool features, slipper clutch, adjustable levers, all this cool stuff, it is a more expensive motorcycle. So at the end of the day, the MT03 doesn't have that stuff, but it is reflected in the price. Me personally, if you were to try to make the MT03 compete with this with some of the features, you're going to spend more money than just buying a Duke 390. So the Duke, I think, is the better buy out of the box, but there's only one way to find out which one is better, and it's by riding them.
Let's go do it.
Let's do it.
Oh, we got a tough guy, bro. Damn, dude. That Infinity was so fast. Alrighty, Spike, we're starting this one off in motion on the bridge here in Austin during the midst of this coronavirus outbreak, so there's like nobody out here, which is crazy.
Yeah, it makes for a slightly nicer ride, not having to deal with other people, but...
And just as a reminder, guys, we are ethically practicing social distancing and limiting our travel. We're not going to be stopping by any coffee shops or anything on this route. We are just riding our bikes around in the open, wearing all of our gear, making sure to keep some distance. Spike, I need to actually keep a little bit more distance from you, make sure I'm not getting infected over here. Make sure that you can stay with me, all right?
All right, I can handle that.
Yeah, keep clear. Okay, so we're on these two bikes, and as we mentioned in the garage, the first thing I noticed on the MT03 is this low seat height, man. Like, holy crap, this bike is super low, approachable for riders, but me as someone who's 6 feet, this is just about as small as I would want a bike. Damn, this thing's tiny.
Would you actually ride a bike that is that small had you not perhaps gotten it as a press bike?
I don't think so, and that's a great point, because I did start an R3 that has very similar dimensions to this, and at the time, I think I just didn't know any better, you know? Like, it was just like, oh, this is just a motorcycle, and it is what it is. But it's too tiny. Like, look at the bend in my legs, you know?
Yeah, no, that's totally wrong, I think.
Yeah, it's a little small for me. I think something like the Duke is a little bit more appropriately sized, but yeah, it's just a little bit tiny.
And that's crazy, because this is only 2 inches taller in the seat. But I guess 2 inches
makes
is
a big difference, though. 2 inches is all you need, Spike. 2 inches in the rear. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise. 2 inches in the rear, all you need. All you need, dude. So you were saying earlier you just flipped that bad boy into supermoto mode. Do you feel any differences? Are you tempted to do any more hooligan-y things with it?
I do think that if it does adjust the fuel map, maybe just a little bit more power, a little lower.
Yeah.
Not by much. But, you know, I can really feel that front end getting very light on me, which is awesome.
So easy to wheelie that thing.
It's a real fun little riot of a bike to ride. And this is my first time actually riding it on the street.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, you've only ridden around the parking lot.
And it's just so punchy. You know, I think if you're somebody who is perhaps looking for that DRZ life, and you're too short for it, go get the Duke 390.
Yeah, I don't think you can really go wrong with that little bike if you're trying to wheelie it and do some stuff like that, or if you're a shorter rider and you want to have fun on a bike. I think that thing has so much of that kind of supermoto hooligan DNA in it. You know?
Absolutely.
Yeah, whereas this has much more of that kind of more grown-up naked bike kind of vibe to it. But it's certainly not as peppy and exciting as the Duke, I wouldn't say.
Probably not, but the nice trade-off there is you are getting a good quality...
Spider, say keep away from me, dude.
You are getting a good quality, reliable engine out of that. I mean, the R3's freaking bulletproof, And that's the same...
Yeah, that is something we got to talk about, man. Like that RC and that Duke engine, that 373cc from KTM, boy, it's had a lot of problems. So many owners have reported head gasket issues, valves coming out of adjustment way early on in their life. Ari Henning's actually a notable guy who raced an RC390. He told me he had that thing out of the frame at least 10 different times, So if you are concerned about, mechanical reliability and you don't really feel confident in your abilities to wrench on a bike, maybe the Duke's not a great option. I don't know about the brand new ones. They said they've solved some of those issues, but you just never know,
The only way to find out is to ride one till they fall apart and see what caused it,
And we are taking a bit of a different route today. We're here in more city conditions because I feel like, a lot of people are going to ride these bikes these kind of conditions, man. I don't think...
You missed the turn.
No. Oh, I didn't know that. I'll take the next right.
The scenic route.
I'm going on Old Torf. Oh, I see. You're over there.
Nope.
I'm stuck over here.
While I'm just sitting here, though, I mean, look at this, guys. The mirrors on this, actually, I can see stuff out of.
Are you ready for the strength? the sheer power of this engine.
Getting in that full tuck.
You gotta just... It was wide open for like 3 seconds and I didn't even come up on this Corolla. It was awesome. Yeah, as a more experienced rider, I think the MT03, you're just like, this thing is so goofy and like small and silly. But the Duke 390, I think, can offer an experienced rider a ton of fun, man. Oh my God.
Totally. Yeah, no, I'm just having a ball sitting on it, romping on it in second gear and letting that wheel just start hovering.
Yeah.
How often are you on a little itty bitty sport bike or naked bike, give it gas, and the front wheel just comes up? I mean, that's crazy.
Yeah, I think for Ninja 400 R3, this bike certainly won't do it, but that bike will. First gear, whoop.
But yeah, this is just such a nice cockpit to look at while you're riding.
That TFT is gorgeous, yeah.
And the fact that it just auto adjusts night and day, going into the dark. Backlit cluster is just awesome.
Yeah, I love the fact that when it's dark, it adjusts to that night mode.
It really is kind of a shame we're not going to spend more time with the MT03, because I think given a couple of mods, we could make it a lot more fun than it is right out of the box. I'm thinking
totally.
Exhaust, of course tank grips, because you got to have those.
Gotta have the tank grips.
Maybe messing with the rear suspension a little bit to either raise the rear end or just do something to make it slightly more comfortable.
One thing you could do on this bike if you wanted to turn it into more of a hooligan bike like the Duke, just slap a bigger rear sprocket on it.
Absolutely.
Like you're not gonna be pulling super huge highway speeds on this thing anyways.
But yeah, no, a rear sprocket change on that would be probably a great idea. Probably be one of the first things I do with it.
Yeah, the word I'd use for the Duke is just playful. Like it just, when you jump on it, it feels like a little puppy. Like it just wants to play around.
Mm-hmm.
I've never been on a bike before. Like once you jump on it, you're like, oh, all I want to do is slide the rear wheel and pop wheelies. That's all I want to do with this thing. You want to do we should probably swap bikes at some point. We could do a Chinese fire drill swap right now if you're feeling bold.
Sure. Pop it in neutral.
All right.
Have fun. Okay.
The seat height is immediately apparent, dude. Oh my God.
Just hot swap bike to bike. I feel like I'm sitting inside the motorcycle. And this is what I'm saying about tanks, you know, it just is not, these wings are not conducive to a taller rider.
Yeah, I can't believe the seat height difference is so immediately apparent. Oh my God.
Yeah.
I feel like my butt is just way higher in this seat. You know, it feels so much more sporty and aggressive. It's crazy.
Like, I gotta just look really stupid, right?
A little bit, yeah. You definitely do look a little bit too big for that bike. And that tiny little headlight really does look like a, I don't know, it looks like a mod that you did yourself. It doesn't look stock, you know?
Yeah.
One thing I will say for a point on the MT03, that seat's a lot more comfy. This feels like a washboard.
Yes,
you know?
there's a little bit more cushiness in this seat.
So I think if you've got
the engine is just way smoother, and that's just the difference between having two little cylinders and one big giant thumper. It's way less vibrational, and honestly, I think the fueling on this is a little bit more smooth and linear.
Totally, like I'm holding this right now, just kind of moving through the gears, and it does kind of, you know, it's just a little bit more herky-jerky, you know?
It feels like that bike needs to be just wide open throttle all the time. But the flick-in is nice. In a corner, the tires just do what they're supposed to do. Everything works, you know? And there's something to be said for that.
It's a competent bike, you know? There's no glaring flaw to it, but I think in a marketplace where the KTM exists, it's a hard sell for the MT03, honestly, which is hard for me to say as a Yamaha fanboy, but you know, it's really tough if you're looking at these two bikes is to make the case for the MT03. I think the only case it has is that price, but then when you consider all the stuff you get on this bike, it starts to look like a bargain.
Honestly, yeah, just the TFT alone to me seems to be worth that extra. I mean, it's not even a whole $1,000, I don't think.
Yeah, I mean, just to list it off, you get the TFT, you get the Supermoto mode as part of that TFT, you get bigger brakes, better brakes, you get adjustable levers, you get higher quality WP suspension. I mean, all those parts are definitely worth less than $1,000, you know?
Oh yeah, totally.
You want to swap again so we can keep comparing, contrasting?
Sure, I'd like to actually feel what that's like on a twisty road. Wow, just immediately the punch on this bike is just so much more apparent than on the R3.
Yeah.
Or the MT03.
Yeah, this is much more of a revvy, you know, you gotta pull the power out of it and squeeze it like a lemon type of bike, you know? I think the Duke, even though maybe it's not quite as, you know, approachable as the MT03, is a better stepping stone because the seat height is already kind of more similar to how a sport bike is gonna be, and the power is a little bit more punchy and similar to how a bigger bike is gonna be. So I think the 390 Duke is a great starting point because it already kind of presents you with, it's like, oh, this is what a kind of bigger bike is going to be like, you know? I
do believe that there is a little bit more big bike in this than the MT03. The MT03 is definitely kind of pigeonholed into the little bike feel.
Very much a beginner class type of bike, yeah. Still really rewarding to rev this little 321cc out though, man. It's great. Get it above like 10,000 RPM, gives you some of that, you know, mini GP bike type of feelings. Yeah, guys, I think that's going to wrap it up. That is our opinions on these two bikes. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to subscribe. Remember, we're giving away that KTM, so that's definitely not my bike. Someone else is going to get that bad boy and take it home and rip their own dank nooners on their off time. So hit the link down below, go to yamanoob.co and check that out and get yourself signed up to win. But with that, whoops. That's why we look through our corners. But yeah, guys, we'll catch you on the next one. See you later. Duke 390 is love. Duke 390 is life. Friendship with Yamaha canceled. KTM new best friend.
What are we going to cut into here? Are we cutting into beginner bike?
Oh, that's right. Oh, I guess it is. I guess it is a beginner bike giveaway series video because we're comparing the giveaway bikes. Where you really sometimes I question. I'm like, do I know how to do this? Like, do I know what's going on? Seat height, that's a big one for this one.
Oh yeah, totally. The seat height on this guy is is not on our sheet. Oh yes, it is 30.7. Let's start over there.
Try it again. Then the R3. One of the wow, I said it wrong again. Jesus. Try it again.